Mobilizing resources and efforts for biodiversity in this context and at this scale is really the issue today.
We're currently spending far more on harming biodiversity than on conserving it and using it sustainably.
The world will miss out between 2021 and 2030 about 10% of the predicted growth for the world going forward in the next decade.
Looking at the enormity of the task in front of us, the SBI debate is not anywhere where it should be. The SBI debate is very much about the very, very small ODA category. And that is worrying for me.
There are a lot of options, there are a lot of potential solutions if there is enough political will, if there is enough knowledge about the advantages, the social, the economic and ecological advantages.
80% of the problem is mostly about greening our economy.
We're undermining nature.
Natural disasters, which are caused by biodiversity loss and climate change, they cost the planet approximately $300 billion annually.
And this is sort of a stress test for the global economy.
While nature is actually providing roughly the basis for half of our GDP.
How do we move those projects that have high economic returns and make it more biodiversity friendly? So that's what we call greening finance.
The framework in its current revised draft recognizes that urgent policy action globally, regionally and nationally is required to transform economic, social and financial models.
We need to have a kind of a target in terms of financial flows and really a combination of public, domestic, international flows.
The gap is around $711 billion per year. While this amount seems very large, it's actually comparable to the total climate commitment.
We all know that everything in that graph will depend on national decisions.
We should not limit ourselves to recovery, but we have to basically rethink and redesign development with the biodiversity foundation as an important element.
So we really have to multiply our efforts by at least 5.
We need to mainstream biodiversity into our investment decisions.
The only way really to do that is to align financial flows as they have a biodiversity positive impact.
This financing gap will not be closed unless all countries take significant efforts to scale up the reform of subsidies harmful to biodiversity and improve investment risk management practices by the financial sector.
This means that everyone, public and in the public sector and the private sector, will need to be involved.
Public spendings altogether represent about 35 trillions per year, roughly half of the global GDP. And it makes the financial gap for biodiversity look manageable, which we think it is.
Total annual subsidies to agriculture, fishery, and forestry, which are potentially harmful to biodiversity, is between 274 and 542 billion $. Reducing and redirecting those harmful subsidies should be at the top of the action list for all countries.
We have to work on a target on harmful incentives or negative incentives to biodiversity.
The finance sector is increasingly taking biodiversity and nature seriously, not something anymore that we may want to do, but something that we must do.
We don't make changes to the way that we provide finance. It's madness.
We all believe that there is a strong business case to really adopt a combination of pro-growth and pro-nature policies to advance sustainable development.
Leveraging the transformation of economic sectors and by financing a biodiversity positive economy.
The national finance plans will be crucial.
Bilateral and multilateral banks should prioritize the capacity building for domestic policy reforms and covering sectorial transition costs.
So we're looking forward for the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, just as the Paris Climate Agreement did for climate change, to galvanize action, to mobilize the world to protect and restore nature, to help achieve the SDGs.
The most impactful actions to unlock both public and private financial flows are through reforming policies and improving regulatory frameworks by national governments.
It is really about you, both conservation community and the finance community of convening together, listening more carefully to each other and finding common solutions.
And there needs to be continuity.
And I think what we're doing today is bringing that debate where it should be.
Now, implementation of this framework will for sure require an unprecedented mobilization of financial resources from all sources.
This revolution has already started, and with quite a bang, I must say.
It will require collaboration among all different actors.